The Entrepreneurial Journey Podcast. We're talking business and building a culture that's kick-ass. Where we make it happen, grab your seat, let's have a blast. At the Entrepreneurial Journey Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Entrepreneurial Journey Podcast. Today I'm absolutely delighted to have Karen Gibb with me. Hello Karen, how are you?
Hello. Lovely to be on here. Thank you for having me, Rebecca.
Absolute pleasure, Karen. So you are the Chief Calm Officer and founder of Mind Marvels. Tell me what Mind Marvels are all about.
Great. So, yes, we support children to find their own calm superpowers through sessions run by myself in nurseries, schools, and in the community as well. So, we like to call it sort of calming strategies and practical tools to support wellness.
A much needed service. And how did all of that come about? That's not something when you're at school you think, I know, I'm going to train children how to be calm. It's not on the careers list.
Is it not?
It should be, but it isn't.
Absolutely. Probably from my own anxieties, to be totally honest. I was always a really confident, and still am, a very confident person. But underneath that, like many people, I struggle with my own anxiety, my own worries, my own sort of rationale around certain situations. So I became a teacher and quickly fell into that cycle of loving working with the young people, but feeling that I wasn't personally prepared for the big bad world.
Okay.
So in my late 20s, I discovered mindfulness, and this really changed really the journey that I then took. I worked predominantly with children in care and in the social work department. So I was always already working with children that really desperately needed that support and those calming strategies. I then implored to let them be my guinea pigs and tried a couple of sessions with them, which were hit and miss, if I'm completely honest.
Yeah.
I then realised I didn't want to teach for the rest of my life, and that I actually was really interested more in the wellbeing and rather than teaching maths and English and other subjects too.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I ran taster sessions in other schools and really started to hone in on what Mind Marvels was all about. So that's where we are now. And we have just franchised the business UK-wide, which is extremely exciting now that I think about other people taking on what we're doing. So I'm really delighted to be part of that journey, helping more children along the way.
I love. So I'm going to come back to some of the strategies that you use with the kids, because I think the grown-ups could definitely learn a thing or two. And I want to ask you about franchising, because I'm racking my brains. I don't think we've had somebody on who has franchised their business. No, Pillow Partners, he's a franchise. But you're a relatively new franchise, is that right?
Absolutely. Just this year we franchised, so very new.
What gave you the idea for franchising?
Really over lockdown, it was when, of course, everyone's business ideas came to a head. I was pretty certain I didn't want staff. I thought, how can I expand this without putting even more pressure on myself to be in a managerial position? Now, I'm very aware that franchising will also, I will be in that respect a manager to some degree, but I really wanted people to come on board that were fully invested in themselves. They had that personal development experience and that they were willing to sort of put themselves out there as, franchisees for Mind Marvels. So I think that's where it came from. But if I'm totally honest, Rebecca, I thought franchising was a con or some pyramid scheme before I actually looked into it. And once you discover ethical franchising, you realise there's so many opportunities out there that are great for so many people.
It's really interesting you say that, because particularly in the UK, for some reason, and I don't know why, franchising has a bad, not a bad name, but a tarnished reputation. I think
Absolutely.
it's fair to
Absolutely.
say.
Do you think we're just big cynics of tried and tested business models?
I don't know. I really, when I was kind of growing up in the business world in the 90s and the noughties, people were quite snobby about franchising. It's like, oh,
Mhm.
that's a proper business. And there was that attitude. And then recently, you're right. I had a woman, we don't franchise our model. We train people in our model, and then we have a really nice associate kind of partner model. So it's not quite franchising, and it's not quite licensing. It's kind of got anyway. It's a new hybrid that I have created. But some woman said this is a pyramid scheme, and I went, no, that one, they're illegal, and two, they're horrific, and I detest them, and they prey on people's insecurities. This is a way of showing you how we've done something that
Mhm.
we know works and that we've tested in the real world, and we're now offering you the opportunity to do the same thing. I'm not quite sure where the catch is there.
Absolutely. I don't know if we like to just do everything and be really like as if it's a shortcut. Therefore, we have to always start the business from scratch and do everything by ourselves. Whether for some reason that's more hard working when actually being part of a franchise is still just as hard, not quite as hard, but you've got that support there. And I wonder if we're a bit cynical about that help.
Yeah, I agree. Hang on, I've made a fatal error and not turned my email off. Let me do that. Right. Yeah, I agree. I think yeah, I don't know what it is. The Americans love a franchise.
Yeah, and Australians as well, huge with franchising.
Yeah, they totally get it. And the American system in particular is very sophisticated, very well regulated. I haven't looked into Australia. I'm assuming it's the same in Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, good. Right. How's the franchise going?
Well, so we've had a flurry of people coming, sort of having inquiries with us, and fingers crossed, we're just about to take on our first franchisee. So everything's going to plan. I'm really about, I know, fingers crossed. I'm really about quality over quantity. I would rather have 5 amazing franchisees than a huge amount that I felt weren't right for my business.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
Mhm.
no, I totally agree. And what do you look for in a franchisee?
I really hone in on personal development because I can teach business skills. I can teach people how to put their accounts through. I can teach people how to, schedule their social media, but I can't necessarily teach a positive mindset or a growth mindset. This is something, and I know, Rebecca, this is something you also teach, but it is very difficult. People have to have that open mind and that ability and that resilience to want to change. So as much as we look for former teachers or people interested in working with children, I do believe we need to have that open mindset as well to adapt and be able to thrive when things don't always go to plan, which is guaranteed.
It is, yeah, they're absolutely guaranteed, 100%. Yeah, no, you're right. It's that sense of curiosity. It's that attitude of, I'm a big sponge. I'm here to soak it all up and see if there's something new I can learn. The minute somebody says to me, I've done my diploma in coaching, that's it, I'm like, well, you're not right for us then.
Absolutely. You need that growth. You need that ability to continue to grow as well, don't you? So I'm always working on my personal development and it'll never be finished. And you'll be the same.
Yeah, totally. What you're working on now in your personal development? Doing it. Are you allowed to say?
Well, yeah, so I'm working through a couple of different programs just now, but I'm really interested in the sort of the growth mindset and the I'm really into this year looking at feminine goals. So having tangible goals like a masculine goal, but also bringing in the feminine energy of it as well. So it sounds a bit woo woo, but women are so different to men in terms of goal setting and how our cycles are that it's really, really, really interesting for me.
That's I've not thought about goal setting in that respect. That's really interesting. So tell me what the subtle differences are.
So giving an example here, a male goal could be I want to, for example, earn £3,000 a month. And the female goal might be I'd like to earn as much as I could this month. So you're not setting a monetary goal on it, but what you want to do is take the masculine goal and have a feminine goal and kind of meet halfway. So then your goal becomes something like I would like to earn, X amount over the year. So it's not because sometimes we have those ebbs and flows, don't we, in business, where it's you're not having a 3K month every month, for example, but over time you'll see that correlation does happen. But it's
Love
about giving ourselves that forgiveness and giving ourselves that drive without feeling like, oh, we failed this month.
I like I like that. My favorite, and I've said this on the podcast before, my favorite symbol is the Chinese yin and yang
Absolutely,
symbol.
absolutely.
Because we all need that balance, don't we, of masculine and feminine energy.
Yeah,
Absolutely
and
love
it's
it.
so interesting when you look at male business leaders. So, typically, without going off on a tangent here, but their, hormone and their energy levels are reset every 24 hours, whilst women are on that typical 28-day cycle. So when you look at the times each month where women can do tasks, some tasks better than other times, then you can start to plan your days and your weeks according to your cycle. Honestly, there's it's so interesting.
Fascinating. I have never thought of that
And
ever.
lots of women don't because we're in that typical male dominated society of running businesses. And when you start to hone in and understand what's, underneath there, oh, it's fantastic. I've got so much I can share with you.
That's very exciting. Was there anything in this literature that talked about menopausal women? Because I'm now 52. So what happens
Absolutely.
then?
So with menopausal women, you follow the moon cycle instead of, your typical period cycle. So the moon, and of course, this all sounds very woo, and I appreciate that as somebody that's quite a realist.
Mhm.
But actually, when you strip back all the basics, we are tuned, literally to the moon, to the
Yeah.
waves, to the oceans. It's so fascinating, and it's something that I've only just discovered recently. So I'm very on the outside looking in, but very interested.
Right. So today, and I know we're digressing, we will come back to your business, but today I have got through so much stuff. I've been on fire today in a really relaxed way. I'm going to go away and check the cycle of the moon and see what that
Absolutely.
says to me.
Because I think tonight's a full moon, isn't it? I'm sure tonight is a full moon.
Is it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is a full moon, or is it a new moon? Either or, whichever one it is, it'll let me just check because I'm sure that means yeah, it's a full moon tonight, which means that typically women are full of energy around this time of their cycle.
I've been buzzing.
There you go. See, there is actually a method to your madness. You just don't know it.
That's amazing. Right. Okay. So let's pretend you've got your first franchisee, which sounds pretty imminent.
Yeah.
How do you set them up to succeed and what kind of things are they doing? So let's talk about some of the techniques as well that you're using.
Absolutely. So we send them on a bit of a personal development journey. So we look at things like, I don't know if you've seen the Angela Duckworth TED talk. She
Wow.
talks all about it's really good. It's all about resilience and where it comes from. And actually, it doesn't matter how intelligent you are or how much money your parents have. If you don't have that resilience built in, then typically it's something that people can work towards, but they have to do it on their own personal development journey. So we give them a lot of trainings around resilience and growth mindset just to really hone in on how important that is for the franchise. But then we move into why we're doing what we're doing, and I can hear Simon Sinek somewhere in the background. But really, why are the sessions built the way they are? Why do we go through this a session in the order that we do? And more importantly, why are we doing what we do? Why are we going into schools and teaching this? And there's a really surface level answer to that. We're helping people, we're helping children. But actually, underneath that, we're creating a sort of barrier for children so that when they grow up, they'll be able to take these tools with them into adulthood. And it's something we can't necessarily measure right now. But if every child from a Mind Marvel session goes away and has, instead of shouting at somebody or instead of throwing something across the room, they're taking a breath or they're thinking a bit more positively about a situation, then that is hugely impactful for that young person growing up. And that's what I'm most excited about, the ripple effects of change that we can bring to society.
It's impactful for the rest of their lives, Karen.
Absolutely, absolutely. But sometimes you tell people this and they're like, they look at you like you've got, 5 heads. But it's making these tiny changes to children that will impact them forever, like you say.
Yeah. Do you have kids yourself?
No, we don't have children at the moment. It's definitely something we're thinking about in the next couple of years, which actually, as much as it excites me, terrifies me too, because I know too much.
Yeah.
Like, am I going to be this mindful mother that, you think in your head? Reality is, no, I'm going to make mistakes like everyone else. I don't have it together all the time. I still have to apologize, to people when I do wrong, and that's what grows you as a person, right? It's about apologizing, it's about moving forward, and it's about learning from your mistakes.
It
So
is.
it'll definitely be an interesting journey if it happens.
Well, I'm going to give you a bit of a heads up. So, I'm a licensed trainer of NLP.
Yeah.
So my kids, I've got 3 kids. They're 25, 22, and nearly 14. So they've all grown up with mum doing NLP. Okay.
Mhm.
Two of them have been on my practitioner and master practitioner
Oh,
courses.
wow.
The teenager hasn't yet, but hopefully she will.
Mhm.
So the response I get is, Mom, stop using your NLP voice. I'm not interested in that nonsense. And and because they're your kids, they find special and unique ways to really wind you up.
I mean, it's so common, isn't it? And I always imagine that if we have children, it will be they won't want to engage with anything that mum or dad is teaching. It will be from someone else
Yeah,
further down the line that actually they listen, which is so frustrating.
I know. Yeah, well, you learn kind of the thing that was really telling for me. So, Dr. Richard Bandler, the co-creator of NLP, has been my teacher for years and years and years. And I remember one seminar, he said, when my daughter was a teenager, I had no idea what to do with her, and was like, okay, the genius of our time didn't know what to do with his teenage daughter. I am let off the hook.
I feel better. Absolutely. It's just normal though. I think we have these great expectations as teachers, as mothers and fathers and all sorts of roles in our life, but really reality just kicks in, doesn't it?
It does. Okay, so what kind of techniques are you teaching the kids?
Brilliant. So we start with learning. So they learn a little bit about the brain, they learn a little about what's going on inside there. And we keep it really basic because I don't think it has to be hugely complicated, and I have like 3-year-olds that are in nursery that'll come up to me and say, Karen, my meerkat's jumping, because they understand that fight, flight, or freeze response. And they might not understand it completely, but they understand that they're having these big, big feelings. So that for me is fantastic. Then we do a bit of mindful movements, a bit of gentle stretching, and then we move on to breathing techniques. We have mindful massage, which is peer to peer, so child to child, on the back, fully clothed, and it's all about positive touch, and they always have to ask permission, which is really important because consent is vital, especially in this day and age when we know that children are accessing more and more things online that are not appropriate. So they have that positive touch. And for some kids, it's huge because they might not even have had a hug that day. So, first of all, asking permission. Second of all, having that positive touch is it's just a great feeling. And it releases so many lovely chemicals all around the brain. So absolutely recommend. And then we move on to our mindfulness practice, and then finally positive affirmations and gratitude to finish the session. So it's really lovely. 5 sort of parts to each of our sessions, and every child can learn, whether they don't speak English, whether they have additional support needs. It's open to all children, and that's what makes it so special.
Yeah. Oh, that's just beautiful. That is absolutely beautiful. And what a difference you must be making. What kind of feedback do you get from their teachers?
Lovely feedback. Just children, teachers observing children in the classroom, taking a couple of deep breaths. Or there's one wee boy that I'm working with, we do ice cream breathing. So you sit up nice and tall, and then as you breathe out, you melt like you're an ice cream in the sun. And this is a little P1 boy that's struggling with his emotions right now. And so, when I'm not there, he'll say to the teacher, I want to do my ice cream breathing. Like, if you didn't know what that was, you'd be like, what are you talking about?
That's so cute. You must go home, like, after one of those sessions being the happiest person on the planet.
It's so nice. It's such an honour. It's such a privilege to be allowed to teach young people and to support them with their own sort of mental health and emotional well-being. I feel it doesn't feel like work. Don't get me wrong, I am exhausted, but it doesn't feel like work in the same way that teaching felt like work. Teaching was great to a certain degree, but it was the stuff that took up so much time was the admin and the meetings and the emails after school, and that's something I don't need to do as much of now. I can do things on my own terms, and that's what I find so magical about running my own business.
It is magical. I think that's a beautiful word for it. It really is magical.
Because you can
So
choose, like that choice is so vital.
it really is. It's essential. And yesterday I was interviewing a lady called Jenny, and we were talking about years ago there was something called the Sure Start scheme for young parents.
Oh,
Um,
yes,
yeah,
I remember it.
yeah, and I think it was the Roundtrees Trust did
Mhm.
research into it and saying that the benefit of that had massive positive long-term implications. Are you doing any studies to follow up with kids as they grow up?
No, actually, not anything concrete. We do like a pre and post evaluation of children, but that would be quite interesting actually to get that on board and definitely take that on. There's some children that I see now that I've seen, they've been in primary 1 and they're now in P4, and it's really nice to see that difference in them, definitely.
Wow. I genuinely think, because Jenny and I were talking, you take a kid up until the age of 6, and
Hmm.
that's when their sort of the most sort of key values and behaviors are formed, their boundaries are formed, their kind of framework for life is formed, and it's such an overlooked area of education, an underfunded area of education. And that's why I wanted to interview you, actually, because I think the more nurseries and primary schools get to hear about this and the more kids get to experience this, the better for society.
Oh, huge. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm going to look into that. I'm very keen on feedback, and sometimes with well-being, it is hard to measure. If it was like a dance company coming in, you could clearly see the correlation, or PE, sports or something. But with well-being, it's so encompassing in everything that we do that it can be quite hard to peel apart different areas. But
Yeah.
definitely something I'd be keen to try.
Well, look, I think she said it was the Roundtrees Trust. She said it was York. It was either York University. It was centred around York. So it was either York University or the Roundtrees Trust or something like this did this research into Sure Start, and the outcomes were excellent. So I think that's so important. When I've recorded this podcast and when it goes out, I'm going to send it to Rishi Sunak, and I'm going to say, you need to get every kid doing this.
No comment.
So, and that brings me on to the next question, actually. You've purposely made this, it's a for-profit organisation, I'm assuming.
Yes,
And
yes.
was there a kind of point in time where you thought, do I make it for profit? Do I make it a community interest? Was that ever a decision you had to sort of come across?
Yeah, it was quite difficult at the start because I thought about doing like a KIC or a CIC interest company. What I found was that there was a lot of red tape, especially being by myself. So, for example, with a charity, it was you had to have a whole board on there for your committee. So I felt quite overwhelmed by that. So I did go down the sort of private route. But what we've done is, well, we're looking to invest some of our profits back into supporting young people. And I think from my side of things, I volunteer on 2 charities myself. So I'm very aware of our social impact, but also aware of how I can better myself and my involvement as well personally. I think it can be really easy to give money back or offer, free sessions, but also people, their time is so, we need their, time is so important for charities as well, people having hands-on. So that's where I am at the moment, but it's
Yeah,
definitely something we're looking at future
yeah,
wise.
good. No, and by the way, I actually think it's really important that you're a for-profit organisation, because I think it makes you, I don't know what it makes you, but when I look out there on the landscape and I see community interest companies and for-profit companies and charities, the charities, you're right, they get tangled up in red tape and they end up
Oh,
struggling overfunding, and often it actually doesn't help anybody. But the community interest companies often start off well and then can fizzle out a little bit.
yeah, yeah. And
I
some, mhm.
go on.
Sorry, I was just saying something that concerned me as well was that I wanted to remain in charge. Like as a, to be honest, it was my baby. I want to be in charge. So I think for charities at least, you need like a board of people on there.
Yeah,
And I wanted to just make sure that I was the sort of person that could be at the top, if you like, for
yeah.
now. For now.
It's your vision, and what you're doing is so important. I think it's right that the original vision holder has control over what's going on. Definitely. Where are
Mhm.
you taking the business? What's your big vision for it?
The big vision is eventually to crack America and Australia, because I really do think what we have is hugely important worldwide. It's so easily translatable worldwide as well, even with a Scottish accent.
Oh, yeah, definitely, especially with
Um,
the Scottish accent. Yes.
Definitely. But something that I have sort of thought about is, I'm not adverse to selling the business further down the line. And I think that is a healthy sign of growth as well. I don't necessarily think I'm going to be in it all my days. And I'm okay with that as well. I think that's healthy. It's change and it's growth again as a person.
Yeah, no, I would totally agree. Totally agree. Now, if your business had a personality or a character, Karen, how would you describe it?
Oh, these are amazing questions, Rebecca.
It's as if I'm a coach and I do it for a living.
A personality. Oh, this is so difficult. A personality. I would say just a little bit out there. So what you see is what you get, but there's loads of magic behind that. But there's also this real honesty and this real genuine help or need or want to help. So we're not adverse to taking risks, healthy risks, but we're also very aware that we have a purpose in this world and that we have our values that we need to adhere to at all times. So don't know if that quite answered your question, but we'll give it a shot.
I like the fact that magic is at the heart of everything, and you've mentioned it a few times, and it's clearly something that is in your heart, actually, because you keep bringing it up. And I think what you do is magical, and I would imagine the changes that you see in some of these kids is just pure magic.
Absolutely, and because magic, you can't see it, right? So you can't always see the impact you're making. You can't always see what's going into a child's brain and what they're computing inside their heads. But actually, at the end of that, you see the magical outcomes when they go away and they have those big issues that they're struggling with.
Yeah. Now, if I'm sitting here listening, thinking, crikey, I'd really like to run that franchise and talk to Karen about that, where do people go?
Oh, so easy. So mindmarvelsfranchise.com. We're Mind Marvels on every social media platform that you can think of. I'm on LinkedIn as Karen Gibb. Just send me a message. Happy to chat. I don't do a hard sell because actually I want to make sure we're the right fit for each other. So it's as important for me as it is for you that we get along great. And yeah, I look forward to hearing from you.
Brilliant. I love that. Yeah, we don't do the hard sell. We spend most of our time putting people off.
I love that though, because that's you want again, it comes back to quality over quantity.
Yeah, definitely. Look, right. I'm going to watch your growth with great anticipation because, again, what you're doing is amazing. And when I come across teachers, in fact, I might put you in touch with Tom Crombie, who runs My Online School.
Fantastic. That would be
He,
great.
he's based in Edinburgh. Um, and this is the kind of thing I bet he'd be really interested in for his students across the globe. I am going to put you in touch with him.
Oh, thank you. And now you've said it on air, it has to happen. You
Well,
realise
it will
that?
happen. Yeah, it will happen. It's amazing. Best of luck, Karen.
Thank you so much. And don't forget the great work you do too, Rebecca. Thank you.
No, thank you.
The Entrepreneurial Journey podcast. We're talking business and building a culture that's kick-ass.